What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Sunbelt Syndicate, the Round Ball Roundup edition. We haven't seen you guys in a little while, so we're going to step it back a little bit, but we're mostly going to talk about the current standings, the current bracket outlook, and obviously this weekend coming up Saturday, if you're listening to this Saturday on the way to a game maybe. But first and foremost, Zach, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Wish it was a little warmer around these parts of the country, but other than that. What is
it? Is it in the 40s down there?
It got to like 46 today, but this morning I was walking to class. I was walking to class like 9:30, and it was like 31 degrees and windy. Like it was a tough walk to class.
You guys have any snow at all, though?
No, not this time around. Like a month ago we did, but
gotcha.
we were actually out for like a whole week due to snow, and we got like an inch.
That's crazy. We were right here in little Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We had, I guess, 4 to 5 inches, depending on where you were at. And then as you got further to the coast, they got less and less. But
we got a lot of rain on a few days ago. But
yeah, that's probably the same front. Yeah, just
really cold.
Yeah. Well, it was all snow here. There was no schools or work for people for pretty much 2 days. I think a lot of people were back today, except for schools didn't go back. So now they got to start looking at taking their breaks away and going longer into the summer, which everybody loves to do, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm pretty sure isn't that what they made those e-learning days for?
Yeah, I know. And I guess my vague understanding is maybe you can only have so many of those before.
Yeah, I think it is true. I think you can only they only allow like 5 of them or something like that.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, I've seen, my son's only 6, but he did a video learning day, and they like checked in for like half an hour and just had the kids each tell a story. So I don't know. I mean, they don't have grades too much at their age yet, so maybe it's a little different for the high school levels. But apparently, at the high school level, like they're supposed to show up to each class every day, and the teacher's actually supposed to teach a class. So
I mean, yeah, they did that. They were doing that in Zoom too. Like I remember my senior year we had COVID, and it was like e-learning days, and I had an art class started at like 7:10 in the morning, and I never showed up because you were supposed to show up for like the whole Zoom class, like the whole time, and like I never showed up. I wasn't waking up at 7 o'clock for an art class, and then I didn't show up for like 2 weeks, and like teacher called my mom or something, and like got on my ass, and then I showed up, and then I showed up the next day, and then the very first thing it was like projects were due, and she was talking about like, all right, who wants to present their project? And it was like something I've never seen before. I immediately just left and never went back to one of those Zooms again.
Oh, it was senior year, man. You had to mail it in somewhere, right?
Yeah, especially I'm not waking up at 7 o'clock to join a Zoom for art.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. I don't think I'd wake up for a 7 o'clock Zoom today for my job. No, I probably would, but I wouldn't want to do it every day. That's for sure. You're right. I can understand that. It just gets a little tiresome and whatnot. But man, like I said, we missed a few days here. Baseball was getting started up. We got really lucky. We got some help with getting some coaches and some players on. So if you guys have tuned into those, we do appreciate it. I know that we're going to try and get to that stage with basketball too. It's been a little rough going in some regards, but is that a dog with a chew toy back there?
Yeah, the door is shut, but it's the puppy. He's just running around the house. Like he's been doing this all day. He just sprints around the house, squeaking it. Just sprints like as fast as he can around the house.
That's hilarious.
He just started doing it today. I don't know what's gotten into him today.
Oh man, it's the weather probably, right?
Yeah, maybe it's because he can't go run outside or something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know that my dog's like that with it's not even so bad with the snow now. It's melting obviously and then becoming like a muddy mess. So it's like, no, don't want to let them go out and play in that because they'll take advantage and come back filthy. All right, so we're going to take a look at the standings, Saturday's games, and the current layout of the bracket. So, but first, we do want to take just a small step back and kind of reiterate what we did kind of show a little preview of beforehand, which was the Max Sunbelt Challenge. And obviously you could see here in part 1, we went 8-4. So it was a good start. And Zach, I think you were saying that we probably could have been even better in that first part, right? Besides, a game or two that didn't go our way at the very end. I mean, we were looking really sharp in that first part.
Yeah, I think we started off it was 5-1 or 6-1 or something like that. And then towards the end of the night, we kind of died off.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, as we could see in part 2, we flipped course and went just 4-8. So not the best showing there overall to end that challenge, unfortunately. I think, and if we could have replicated 8-4 and 8-4, we'd been sitting pretty good, 16-8 overall. But obviously that puts us at a total combined for both conferences at 12-12, so an even draw. As far as I'm concerned, that's kind of not great, not only for the sunbelt, but for both conferences, right? I mean, Zach, you want to have a decent disparity here, obviously in your favor if you're the MAC or the sunbelt, but in a year where neither conference necessarily has a massive standout, I mean, it's just going to be better when it gets closer to turning time when you have, if we, like I said, if we could have replicated 8-4 twice and been 16-8 overall, I mean, I don't know, does it get us brownie points anywhere with anybody, you think, or does it not really matter in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah, I don't think one game probably doesn't matter too much at the end of the day. And also this was made because it was two very comparable leagues and two leagues that are very similar. So it doesn't really shock me that even if it was 11-10 or 11-13 or something like that, I mean, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that you look at, I guess, is there were a few of them, but I think they weren't necessarily best versus best, right? They were kind of just catty corner from each other as far as who they matched up with. So, some of the losses were because our team was worse than the team that they were facing on the other side or whatnot. But there were some surprises that unfortunately didn't go our way and did go the MAC's way this second time around. But yeah, overall 12-12, even draw, I don't know. Is there another conference, too, that you'd want to see us do this against rather than the MAC, or you like the MAC as the setup?
Maybe I'm trying to think of other leagues that are kind of close to maybe the CAA.
That would be good. I would like that.
Conference USA, maybe. Yeah, and those are two mid-major leagues that are kind of similar to the Sunbelt in terms of where their teams sit in net rankings and all that stuff, and as well location wise, there's especially Conference USA, there's more teams in the Sunbelt region. But
yeah. I actually like that CAA one that you threw out too, though. I think
it get us up to the Northeast more.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't really see, but you don't really see many Sunbelt teams go up there, so it'd be interesting.
Yeah, that could be an interesting draw. I agree. I kind of like that because I think there's enough CAA teams in the South that it makes sense. You got Wilmington and Campbell and
NCA&T.
Yep, NCA&T. So, yeah, I think there could be some kind of regional games there to an extent too.
Maybe the Big South, but they don't have a lot of teams, I don't think.
Yeah, that was the one thing I thought.
They have 8 teams, I think, or 10 teams.
It's probably less because I think some of them left to go to the CAA, didn't they? Weren't some of them those teams in the Big South before? At least one or two. I feel like the SoCon's kind of the same way, right? You could go.
Yeah, I was thinking SoCon. Both of them.
SoCon, like you said, I think has 8 or 9 teams, so you have a lot of teams sitting out.
I mean, but in both those conferences, a lot of Sunbelt teams play those two teams in those conferences. True, already.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just because of region.
Yeah, close travel and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind continuing with the MAC, but I didn't think about that beforehand. But I thought that was a interesting aspect about who else we could match up with, and
it's
have intrigue.
It's also kind of hard for Sunbelt fans to go to the Midwest in January, February. None of the Sunbelt's in the South. No one wants to go north for the winter.
Yeah, that's a good point. They want to come down here. Yeah,
it's already as bad as it is here.
Right, have the first games up there, and then have the return games in the South.
I mean, even those would be cold, but at least it's early in the year, so more people would be inclined to go see their teams early.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, jumping over to the standings now. I was telling Zach, I'm pretty sure I have these things nailed down with tiebreakers considered as a part of this. We'll just kind of run through this somewhat quickly because we're going to take a look at the bracket where we can talk about this even more and kind of what this might mean going into this weekend and everything. But you've got South Alabama, JMU, both tied at the top there, 11-4. South Alabama owns the tiebreaker, having beaten JMU head-to-head. So that one's kind of an easy tiebreak. The next three teams are App State, Troy, Arkansas State, all tied at 10-5. Obviously, the first tiebreaker is head-to-head. Well, you can make a mess of it when you go head-to-head with App, Troy, and Arkansas State because they've all kind of beaten each other in a roundabout way. So from what I've read on Twitter, thanks to TK from the paper, I believe his screen name is, you would take all three teams. The head-to-head thing then gets thrown out because it doesn't work as a equation, I guess. I don't know if that's really the right way to say it, but you would throw out all the head-to-head and you would take all three teams into the next tiebreaker. The next tiebreaker is how those three teams did against the first place team. And at this point, you can look at the first place team as both South Alabama and JMU. If you go to the tiebreaker there, then it's obviously South Alabama. App State has beaten JMU twice, not going to play South Alabama at all. So that's going to put them up towards the top. Troy and Arkansas State have either split or lost all the games to one or either of those two teams. So even though App State has yet to beat Troy or Arkansas State, they will be sitting in third place as of now. So that's why you're seeing a team like App State up there a little bit higher than the rest, even though they're all tied technically with the record overall right now. Marshall sits alone at 9-6. Then you've got four teams tied at 7-8, including Texas State, ODU, Georgia State, and the Cajuns, who have kind of come up from the bottom there a little bit. Obviously, they don't love that record. Again, another jumbled mess of a situation to figure out because the head-to-head has to get thrown out with a couple teams having beaten each other, but lost to the one way down at the bottom that the other one beat. And again, you just go to that tiebreaker with South Alabama, JMU. Won't go through all those scenarios, but I believe Texas State would be at the top there, followed by ODU, Georgia State, and then Louisiana. And the bottom is pretty easy to sort out because none of those have ties, luckily for us to sort out. Georgia Southern 6-9, Southern Miss 5-10, ULM 3-12, and unfortunately for Zach, the Shants are sitting down there at 2-13. But we were talking about this, so let's jump over to the bracket. And Zach, you can start us off here because we obviously want to start kind of at the bottom and work our way about how this kind of sets up. And you brought up some good points about how this could lay out really well for Coastal Carolina. Again, this is the first year it's going to be done like this and a different look than it has in the past, but just kind of talk us through your thoughts on what could work out for Coastal in their favor here.
I mean, I think just in general, Coastal's playing maybe their best ball of the season, even though the record maybe hasn't shown it, but I think the last few games have been really good. But they lost to Georgia Southern by 1, but they also got blown out by him. So I wouldn't be shocked if they got blown out in the first round. But lose to Georgia Southern by 1, that's a winnable game. And then you go play against Louisiana, lost to them by 3, and probably should have won that game. That's another winnable one. I'll be interested to see, but I kind of think they match up well with Texas State just because Texas State is kind of is not that deep, and as well, they're not big at all. I think their center's like 6'6". I think Talon Pope has been playing like big a lot. And then they lost to Marshall by like I think 3 or 5. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they got blown out in round 1, but this is also I think probably the best matchup, the best path to the to get as far as it can as it can get.
Yeah. And we've seen this before in the past too. Like, let's say they do get past those first 3 teams and they match up with Marshall. Maybe they take include Marshall. How about that? We'll go all the way to say App State. Now App State's been resting there for 3-4 days, possibly more, because coming to the tournament, you're not playing like the day before the thing starts. So you got App State resting for upwards of a week before they play an actual physical game against another opponent.
I think it's like a week in between the first round and the last game of the year.
Okay. So, yeah, you're sitting there. You're cold for a number of days as far as, like, game play goes. And so if Coastal does get past those first 4 opponents and rolls in there against App State, yeah, and anything can seemingly happen. I don't know if I see that from anybody else, though. Maybe Georgia Southern has a chance to go a little bit like Coastal could. Do you see that from the other side with Southern Miss and ULM sitting up there at the top? You think either one of those teams is capable of going on a run?
I mean, even though last night was awful for Southern Miss, and especially lately has been bad. I think they have too much talent on the team not to like completely count them out yet. That's a team that everyone thought was going to be towards the top of the league at the beginning of the year, just because the amount of talent they had from top to bottom. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they made a little run, but with the way they're playing lately, they have to get it going right now to get some momentum going in.
Yeah, that makes sense there. I actually favor Georgia State more than either of those two teams because it's hard because they just got beat by 20 by JMU, right, just on Thursday night. So that's not a great look. But going into that game against JMU, I didn't think they'd win it, but I thought they'd have a chance because of how they'd played against some other teams lately. They beat App State head-to-head. So I think they're a feisty team. I mean, we've talked about this. They're kind of like shorthanded still, right? Like, got some guys out and everything, but they're still finding ways to compete. Again, that JMU game notwithstanding, unfortunately for them.
There's 4 days from the last game of the year till the first round.
Oh, the first round. Okay.
So 4 days. Let's just say like JMU, South Alabama, they're going to be waiting 10 days in between their last game of the year and their first game in the conference tournament.
Yeah, that's not great. I mean, unless there's like an injury that somebody's nursing, right? I mean, then you're thinking, yeah, we want as much time so that guy can get healthy. But I'm not thinking that anybody wants to sit there and not play for that long and then run into a team that
has been playing the last few days,
4 straight or something.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it may not happen at all, right? I mean, it could happen that each team that comes in gets beat, and then you're not really facing necessarily a hot team because you're just playing.
Yeah, but I feel like the kind of setup this I feel like the setup of this tournament is just like asking for like a Cinderella run.
Yes,
like I think that's why everyone in just like the college basketball world in general is like looking forward so much to this, is because like just the way it's built, like you just feel it coming.
Yeah, that's just the biggest question then, right? Like, who could do it, and how far back do they have to be to be considered a Cinderella? Because anybody in 5-6 range, to me, not any kind of Cinderella. 7-8's already a little bit of a stretch because some of those teams have been pretty good throughout the season.
They're still gonna have to win 5 games in 5 days.
True, that's a good point. That's a really good point. The other thing that's so exciting is like we don't have a clear-cut favorite to win this conference. So you don't go in going, well, yeah, I mean, anybody who goes up against these guys are going to lose, though. Like we really and truly, I feel like we just talked about it. Coastal Carolina almost took down JMU the other week by 1. Was it? They lost by 1, right? Isn't that what we said?
Yeah.
I mean, that 14th place team versus the second place team at this point is a 1-point difference in a game. And the first game wasn't all that much further apart either. So, it like you said, it really does set up well this year specifically. I'm not sure if it'll withstand the test of time. But, yeah, this year it really could be anybody's game. This bracket is a little bit weird. Maybe we'll release this on social media, too, after this episode goes live and let people pick it apart if they think that there's a tiebreaker gone wrong or how it's set up. But hopefully it's easier to read than filling out all the names and all that bracket, and it's kind of just the logos to kind of see how it would lay out there. But I don't know. I think that one side's a little bit stronger if you get up there towards the top. Arkansas State somehow sitting at 5th right now. Troy in 4th. South Alabama in 1st, all on that side of the bracket. That's rough. Anybody run into those 3 teams. If I don't know, let's say ODU, right? ODU is at first place early on at a portion of this season. If they somehow make it through Arkansas State and Troy, and then they're playing South Alabama, that's a heck of a little matchup right there. So we'll see what happens. But that's kind of the current look. Again, we kind of went through the standings, but South Alabama and JMU have the inside track as of right now because they're 1 and 2 as it sits. But I think, just like Zach said, you could see a Cinderella run here from somebody. Just going to be exciting to see who that may be when we get down to it. But any last words on that bracket there, Zach?
No, it's still just interesting to see how they do it.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting to watch, that's for sure. All right, so we'll get into Saturday's matchups, and I believe I've got the home team on the right side of each one of these, Zach, when we're looking at this. So Marshall travels to Boone to play App State. This one, a 1 p.m., 12 Central Time start on ESPN, and I've got the records up and also where they sit in the conference. Again, tiebreakers included as of right now. So you'd have Marshall in 6th place, going up against App State, currently sitting in 3rd, but just one game of separation between 3rd and 6th at this point. And obviously that log jam there technically for 2nd place as it sits right now, technically, since those other two teams are tied for 1st. Again, tiebreakers notwithstanding in that regard. All right. I can't remember if these two teams have gone head-to-head off the top of my head. I think they've played once already, though, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'd have to –
No, they haven't. Okay, this is one of those weird ones where they play Marshall twice at the end of the season. So they have them twice in 3 games. So this is the first one between these two this season. Yeah, that's what also makes it kind of tough to predict. Going back, App State losing to Georgia State at home, rebounding against Georgia Southern at home, but having to win in overtime. Tough. Marshall just beat Old Dominion on Thursday, 81-77. Let's see what they did before that. 2 straight losses, 1 to Louisiana and 1 to South Alabama. So they're not coming in the hottest, I'd say.
Yeah.
I guess I'm favoring App State at home in this one. Is there something else maybe sticking out to you that you see in this one? Or
no, I was probably going to lean App State at home. We know how good home teams have been this year in college basketball. And then App State has 2 of the top 8 scoring players in the conference. So I think that'll take them over the edge.
Yeah, if the names Miles Tate and C.J. Huntley don't sound familiar to you, I don't think you've been paying attention to Sunbelt basketball much this year. That's who Zach's referring to there. But
Miles Tate probably Sunbelt Player of the Year.
Yeah, you think so?
Yeah, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals.
Yeah, he's been very, very good. And when you compare him up with C.J. Huntley on the inside, and he's got a good game going, then there's another one that could be good. But Obina and Chili Killen, man, he's also a standout on that other end of the court.
Yeah,
so
3 blocks a game.
Yeah, we'll have to see what he can get done. But again, App State playing at home, I'm going to take them a little bit stronger here recently, but not great. I mean, this is a game that probably still kind of a toss-up when it comes down to like the point separation. I don't know about like a money line thing on this, but it's probably smarter to take a small spread in that one and think it's going to be pretty close, because that's what kind of game both teams seem to play for whatever reason. Okay, ULM travels on the road to play Arkansas State. That's 13th in the conference, Warhawks at 3-12 overall, going up against Arkansas State, sitting somehow, again, when it comes to the tiebreaker, 5th in the conference, but a record of 10-5. So kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum here. Any reason to think the Warhawks are going to go in to Jonesboro and compete against the Red Wolves in this one?
Yeah, no. I think Arkansas State's got it, but Arkansas State is coming off a loss, so it'll be interesting to see how they rebound.
Yeah, I think if you go and look at ULM's schedule too, they string a lot of losses together, and then when they have a win, somehow they beat South Alabama twice in a row, right? So
yeah, back to back. It's kind of crazy.
It's not impossible, but it's just very unlikely because they played kind of lesser teams since then and after them, and really have struggled against most of them. I think they were supposed to keep the game within like 12 and a half points was the spread against Texas State this past weekend, and they lost that game, or this past week. They lost that game 80-63 on Wednesday night. So, yeah, not as close as it should have been there in that one. So I'm going to favor the Red Wolves to get back on track and take that one probably rather easily. Let me see if Let's see if there's a spread showing up on that. Red Wolves by 20.5 points.
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know if I quite favor 20.5 points, but it wouldn't shock me. I just don't know if I'd favor putting money down on that kind of bet. But
that's a lot of points.
It is a lot of points. And in the Sunbelt Conference, I don't see a whole lot of 20-plus point games, I feel like. So I'd stay away from that one. But this one should be interesting here, I think. Georgia Southern travels on the road to go to Harrisonburg, Virginia, to play JMU. Georgia Southern currently sitting 6-9 in the conference, 11th, and JMU 11-4 in the conference. Again, the tiebreaker sitting in second place, even though they're technically tied with South Alabama. This one, I don't see a score spread in this one. They haven't.
No, not yet.
Gotten there yet.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they just have since the those other two games are earlier in the day. They have those up already, but they usually come out like early in the early hours of the morning of the game.
Gotcha.
So probably 2-3 in the morning tomorrow they'll come out.
Well, I plan not to be awake there for that one.
Yeah, me too.
But they just played 2 games ago. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, or 3 games ago, depending on which one you're including. But there was a 5-point game between the two there. Down in Statesboro. So this one, again, 2nd to 11th place. Wouldn't surprise me if it's still a very, very close game that comes down to the wire there. Somebody maybe slowing down the other team, trying to foul a little bit. But obviously, I think I'm favoring the Dukes as they come in having won 3 straight, where the Eagles have kind of alternated wins, losses over their last 4 games. So, yeah, I think I'll favor the Dukes as they seem to kind of be heating up. And I don't know, single standout for the Dukes, is that going to be Freeman at this point, or you got somebody else standing out?
Yeah, probably Freeman. Lindsey, like we've been saying all year, has been really good as well. So it's another guy.
Yeah, definitely true there. Bryce Lindsey. Yeah, they had that 5-game win streak going into that Toledo game too for that Max Sunbelt Challenge where they lost.
Yeah, and then they've won three in a row since then.
Yep. Yeah, that one wasn't the greatest showing, but back on track, and we'll see if they can continue that against the Eagles this Saturday. All right, this one's going to be your expert pick here. Coastal Carolina traveling on the road to face the Trojans of Troy. This is the last place team in the conference as of right now with the Chanticleers going up against the 4th place Trojans as it breaks down. What is the chances they spring an upset? Like we said, we just had a close game there with JMU. Can they do the same type of thing against Troy here?
And Troy just lost at home on a crazy 3 to Louisiana.
That was a crazy 3, right? I mean, like a fadeaway prayer.
Yeah, to lose on that is kind of crazy.
It is.
Yeah, I think Coastal's been playing better lately. Even the App State, it was an 18-point loss, but for a majority of that game, it was close until the very end.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I was watching that one, and I have to agree with you. Closer than the score makes it seem like in that one.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even know how it got to 18 with with how close it was for a lot of that game. But and then a tough loss against JMU, and then a convincing win yesterday against Southern Miss. But I'll still go with Troy at home, the better team. But if Coastal's gonna if they're gonna leave a door open, Coastal's gonna take it with how they've been playing lately. And that one promo that they did at the beginning of the year, the season ticket promo Coastal did.
Yeah.
So they needed 35 wins between their boys and their girls. They're at 29. And there's 6 total games left between boys and girls. So the boys and girls will both have to win out. So I'm praying. Let's all pray for Coastal. The girls are actually on like an 8-game win streak right now.
Yeah, the girls have been really good this year.
Yeah, really good. I mean, it took them a couple years. That's what people talk about. Like they're already saying like, I've heard a couple of people say like, oh, I don't know if like Justin Gray's the guy, but like the girls coach, the girls team was. I think this is his 3rd year, and the first 2 years the coach was there. They were not good either. They were pretty bad. So, and now all of a sudden this year, look at them now. So,
yeah, with the fact that you're getting a coach to come into a school that he's never been at, which is obviously all the time with a new coach, but
you're going to have to miss a recruiting cycle, a full recruiting cycle. You just have to try to – you're not getting, like, the players that you truly want. I mean, that's not like – I mean, I'm not trying to, like, be mean to the players, but, like, at that point, he's just trying to get bodies. Like, he's trying to get the best players he can possibly get. Maybe not the guys that fit in the system, but the best players that he can get.
Yeah, and also he's also got to come in and figure out, like, my financial stuff, right? Now with NIL, with a collective, how much money can I have to get who I want, right? And he's going to be told yes or no. Can we flex? Can we get more donors? There's a lot of stuff to work out now behind the scenes that never had to be worked out before. So like you said, that's going to affect who he can and can't bring in to some extent, whether it's somebody that wanted to be there regardless of whether he was there beforehand or not. So
I mean, Justin Gray he was also like considered like one of like the rising coaches in college basketball with what he was doing at Western Carolina. His age, he's still really young.
Yeah.
He's already got three like highly rated freshmen coming that signed for next year. Like all three of them had like some big time offers, and they chose Coastal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I believe they're getting a new place towards the end of the decade, like in like 4 or 5 years.
Okay. Very nice.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know the place is pretty new.
Yeah, it's pretty new, but I guess it's the setup people don't love or something. I've heard people say, well, it feels like a high school gym.
I think it's just small.
Yeah.
It's like 3,000 seats, and it's literally just like bleachers around like on 4 sides. Like my high school gym, I'm pretty sure was bigger than that.
Wow. That's nuts. I think it was fine probably when they first came into the league, but now that there's been some success and some teams that have some nicer, newer facilities, kind of like one of those keep up with the Joneses, right? Like you've got to have something like that to help bring in those players that he wants to bring in, right?
It's a nice place.
Yeah.
Like it's clean. It's like a good looking. It's like, it looks modern and all that stuff. It's just too small.
Gotcha. Well, a place that isn't small from the looks of it. I've never been there actually, but San Marcos is going to play host to the technically first place team in the conference right now at South Alabama, coming in 11-4. Texas State sitting in 7th place, 7-8 record. Again, believe they own the tiebreaker over those other teams. Have these teams gone head to head? Let me pull this up because I just don't remember off the top of my head if they've seen Texas State yet or not. They have not, but they're only going to see them once. It's going to be this game. No, I'm sorry. I missed it. They did play just 2 games ago. South Alabama won that one by 5 points, 70-65.
In overtime.
Oh, it was an overtime game?
Yep. I believe that was.
Yeah. Okay.
I believe Texas State was down big in this game, if I'm not mistaken.
Is this the one?
Actually, no, they weren't.
This is the one that I feel like they were in overtime and there wasn't a whole lot of points scored. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, there's 15 total points in overtime.
Okay, so that's decent, I guess. Have to see how that works out, but I would venture to say that this could be a little bit of a surprise. If Texas State is on their game, South Alabama has the pressure on them now, right? They have to keep winning to continue with that tiebreaker. If they don't lose another game, they'll own the tiebreaker even if them and JMU both went out. So to me, this one's got a little juice to it because you've got a team that just can't really afford to lose, and a team in Texas State who has the very good capability of winning a game like this. Again, just lost by that overtime game in that last one. Are you favoring Texas State? You're still going to take South Alabama on this one?
Yeah, I'll go with South Alabama. I think just 3-game win streak, just beat Arkansas State. Better defense. They're averaging almost 10 steals a game. I mean, this is an interesting matchup too. 2 small teams, 2 teams that play like a 6'6" center. So not your typical college basketball game. A lot of times you see a traditional big man in there, but it'll be interesting. It'll probably be high scoring if I had to say. More high scoring than their last game, I think. But I'll go with Texas. I'll go South Alabama.
Yeah, I think I'd trust them more. I mean, Texas State just did this 5-game losing streak before they won one, lost one, won one. So,
and their 2 wins are against ULM.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a really good point. So the trust factor isn't there, even though, again, they've played some close games against some of these good teams. The trust factor on getting it done is a little rough. But again, South Alabama's got that pressure on them now. Don't let up, and you've got that first seed. So we'll see if that plays any kind of factor in this one. Okay, we've got the 9th place versus the 8th place. This is a good one, right? Because this is kind of like what you would see in the bracket here. Although I think at this point they both set up on opposite sides because they are 8th and 9th. But
no, they were.
They're on the same side. That's right. They were on the same side. Yep, you're right. I misremembered. But what kind of thoughts you got on this one? ODU, Georgia State, Saturday. This is a night game, 7:00, 6 Central. So all games on ESPN Plus, by the way, for people that are thinking about that. I don't think we have any nationally televised games this weekend. I do know we have one coming up.
Yeah,
but not
ESPN 2. I think it was who was it? App State, the App State game, right?
Yeah, you're right. That's the second App State Marshall game. So not this one this weekend.
Last game of the year.
Yep. This one in Norfolk, by the way, if that plays any role for you.
Yeah, ODU is on a 4-game losing streak. Georgia State won 4 before their loss to JMU. I'll lean ODU just because they're at home. But yeah, I don't feel great about it.
Yeah, I think I kind of see what you're seeing there. 4 games in a row before that loss to a pretty good James Madison team. But it's not so much that they lost to JMU. It was the way they lost, but 20 points there. And how are you going to rebound against a team that's also looking to rebound, right? Like you said, 4 in a row loss for ODU. Oh, man. Yeah, I think I'll favor ODU since they're at home. I believe in them a little bit more. Drew Gordon, probably the best player in that entire matchup. I don't know. I mean, you've got some guys you liked for Georgia State earlier this year too, right?
Yeah. I think Nutter's good. Lane can really shoot the ball.
Yeah.
Edwards has been really good. So yeah, it should be an interesting one.
That one I feel like could be one of those ones that gets away with the high score too, like high 80s, low 90s kind of game for both teams maybe. I guess we'll see in that one, but maybe favor the Monarchs if you got to put some money down or money on it. All right, the nightcap in this one this weekend, Ragin' Cajuns, 7 and 8 in the conference, 10th overall right now. Go on the road to Hattiesburg. Almost said Harrisonburg. Just Harrisonburg, Hattiesburg, both H's, Bergs, too close together. Not in geography, but just in name. But yes, Cajuns travel to Hattiesburg to play the 5 and 10 in 12th place Southern Miss Golden Eagles. We talked about it a little bit before we went live, or before we hit record. Southern Miss kind of falling apart at the seams behind the scenes, or do you think that's just kind of like a one guy's tweet that got out of hand and they're probably okay overall?
I don't think so. I think just everything in general is just going downhill from the fans to the team to everything. So that it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Andre Curbelo plays actually, because I don't know if you saw that he had 4 fouls in the first half. But he picked up his 3rd, and then he argued with the ref about it, so he got teed up. So that was his 4th. Sat on the bench the whole second half, and then late in the second half, when Southern Miss had momentum, there was a no call for Southern Miss, and then he started yelling at the ref again and got ejected.
Jeez.
So I'll be interested to see if they play him or not. But,
that is interesting because he's been in trouble before, right?
Yeah, and he was I don't even think he was sitting on the bench. He was standing on the rails behind the bench, and then he came out and in front of the bench and started yelling at the ref after a missed call. So, I think the wheels might be falling off a little bit at Southern Miss.
Yeah. All right. Hammer the Cajuns for everyone out there with looking to make some money.
Yeah, I'm not a financial advisor, but I would go with Louisiana.
Yeah, I feel like is there any other background information that you've seen or heard as far as the coaching situation there is concerned? Do you think they're going to like wait till the offseason to make an official hire maybe at this point?
Yeah, they would definitely wait till offseason. I'd be interested to see if Derek Zimmerman, the interim head coach right now, gets a shot. I know, like, I think we've said before, like, teams don't like hiring interim coaches. They kind of like going out and starting fresh. But I mean, he's taken this team to 7-8 in conference. I think he's like 7-9 or 6-9 as a coach. So I think Bob Marlin is 4-9. So he's 6-9. So
same roster, yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets any discussion there.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, I agree with you. He's done a pretty good job coming out of the literal dungeon of the sunbelt early in the season, right? I mean, they were just atrocious. A little bit had to do with the injury, but otherwise they still just weren't looking great. And I mean, they're not necessarily looking amazing or anything. They're still 10th place, 7th and 8th, but
I mean, they just knocked off Troy on the road, and they beat Marshall the game before that.
Yeah, it's a good point. Kind of heating up at the right time. Well, we always say that all you got to do is be good and hot at the right time of year, and this is the time of year to be hitting that stride. So we'll see. Let's see how do they finish out after this game. I just want to see who else they got left after the 2 games. Oof. They got a tough schedule to finish it out. They have Arkansas State at home, and then they go on the road to play South Alabama. So they need this one badly in case they drop those last 2, because those aren't going to be the easy ones at all. They have not beaten either of those teams yet this year. Lost to both of them earlier in the year. The South Alabama game was close. The Arkansas State game was a 20-point difference. So maybe they've got a better shot in the South Al game to round out the season finale there in that one. But I don't know. Tough finish for the Cajuns after looking at that. All right, man. Any last notes on this one before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings really quick. I think ULM and Coastal are locked into the first round. Okay. I don't think they can make it out. Neither team can make it out. So they're both locked into day one, because there's 3 games left to get out. There's 3 games left, and to get to 10th place, Louisiana 7-8, and so ULM would have to win. If they win out and if Coastal win out, that still put them at 6 wins and 5 wins. So they're locked into day one.
So they can move around a little bit, but all it would do is move like their positioning. They'd still be day one locks. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I like that information. So they're going to be battling from the bottom to get.
And actually, if it looks like Louisiana Southern Miss game is actually a big thing for that too. I think if Louisiana wins it doesn't guarantee Southern Miss in the bottom 4, but it gets them close to locking it in.
Gotcha. Okay. Good to know. So yeah, so that bottom part of that bracket is looking very realistic. We'll see if Georgia Southern has something to say about getting out of 11th place as it currently sits. But Cajuns, again, like you said, they can do their part and win and keep them down there because they can't be jumped. So we'll see how that works out, man. Very good stuff, man. Well, that'll wrap it up for us. Enjoy the games tomorrow or today, depending on when you're watching or listening to this. And we will catch up with you guys next week. See ya.